Good morning. My name is Matt Wilson. I'm a reporter with AIM Media. I'm here today with District 20 State Senator, Mr. Juan Hinojosa. How are you today, sir?
I am doing great and enjoying the cool weather. It's a nice change.
I agree. I'm glad to have you. This is a conversation that's part of a series of conversations being put on in partnership with AIM Media, Futuro RGV, the League of Women Voters, and the McAllen Citizens League. Interviews will be posted on the social media of Futuro RGV and AIM Media. Mr. Hinojosa, why don't we start off talking a little bit about you? Who are you and what's your experience?
Well, my name is Juan Hinojosa. I was born and raised here in the Rio Grande Valley. I was born in McAllen, raised in Mission, originally from Peñitas, west of Mission. I graduated from Mission High School and actually graduated from Pan American University. I joined the United States Marine Corps, volunteered, Vietnam veteran. Then I attended law school at Georgetown, Washington, D.C. So I'm very, very knowledgeable about the Valley and the concerns and the priorities that we have. And I've been in public office now where I focus on common sense approach to how to solve problems, how to make government work, what I call the bread and butter issues. So there's been my history in trying to focus on the needs that our families have.
Tell me a little bit about your district. Where does it run? What makes it up?
My district is half of Hidalgo County, city of Pharr, Edinburgh, Mission, McAllen, west to the county line with Stark County, then goes up north to Brooks County, Jim Wells County, and then goes east to Corpus Christi, Robstown. Most 85% of Nueces County up in the up east, northeast.
Sure. What would you say the district's biggest asset is, and what would you say its biggest challenge is?
Well, I think the biggest asset that we have is human capital. Demographics shows that we have a very young population that wants to learn, wants to work, is really energized and focused on success and taking care and taking care of all the opportunities that we have, taking advantage of them. So that's very important for us, and people want to learn, have jobs, and be trained. The biggest challenge for us is several, but I'll just focus on one because we're one of the fastest growing regions of the state of Texas, and water. I think water, without a doubt, the Rio Grande River is drying up to a certain extent because of climate change. So I would say water. And then after that, be education, dealing with our teacher shortage, mental health issues, and the setbacks we had because of COVID, trying to recover from COVID, both economically and our schools and mental health.
Talk to me about water. It's a little drizzly today, but that is usually not the case. I know that we've been hearing some disturbing reports out of Falcon. Tell me what the situation is, and if you're reelected, how would you address it?
Well, what we have done here in the state of Texas, we have a statewide water plan through the Water Development Board. We have set aside at least $8 billion to try to focus not only on water conservation, but also how to be able to use desalination of seawater, but also desalination and clean up brackish water. So we're doing that at a state level. At the same time, we are funding storage water facilities so we can increase our capacity. It's a combination of issues and a combination of approaches, what I call a multifaceted approach to dealing with our water shortage. I don't think there's any silver bullet. It's going to take an effort from all of us because of climate change. Climate change is having a very negative impact on our water resources because of the drought that's causing out in West Texas, but also because of issues with our share of water coming in from Mexico on the Rio Grande River.
You know, I know it's really important for the infrastructure down here, traditionally lots of citrus and still lots of farming. Do you think any maybe tightening restrictions on irrigation is part of that plan?
Well, in some point, yes. It may have to be that we look at ways to conserve water, and many times we may have to place restrictions, but those are done by the cities depending on their need and the water capacity they have, the water supply they have available. We're even treating wastewater. It can be reused. maybe not drink for drinkable purposes, but certainly to water lawns, to water golf courses and football fields and other that are not really a priority but are important to our community. So we look at different parts and how to deal with it. We also get feedback from our communities and our local leaders, what they need, what they see, and the type of funding they need and the resources, and the type of, many times it's the type of expertise that needs some guidance and help. So we try to listen and respond to those needs.
Sure. I want to move on to education. I know you said one of our biggest assets is human capital. I know that you've long been a supporter of the university and expansion on that front. Clearly we've got the med school now. If you're reelected, what new stuff would you push for? Where do you think the university needs to go next?
In 2013, I filed legislation and was a lead author to create a new university, UTRGV, which is great for us here in the Rio Grande Valley. They have a student population of 32,000, and now about 90% of the students there attend tuition free. And along with that is a medical school. The medical school is a tremendous asset for us in terms of health care. What we have now is a shortage of nurses and doctors, so we very much focus on graduating and training more doctors to be able to try to not be a medically underserved area. And if you look at the university, what it offers different careers to our students. They don't have to go and leave the Rio Grande Valley. If they do, they'll probably come back because that's where the action is. But education is the best equalizer we have in our society. And the university provides all these opportunities for our young people to be able to get a profession, to be able to learn some type of certification, learn skills from being an engineer to being a doctor, to being have an MBA in business. I mean, that is just such a great opportunity, and the university will continue to grow. One important aspect of that is by creating a university, they made them eligible for the PUF fund. The PUF fund is the Permanent University Fund that has over $30 billion of oil and gas assets that are distributed to all the universities under the UT system and all the universities under the A&M system that qualify for it. And UTRGV qualifies for that, and this money can be used to increase and build infrastructure they need to increase the campus. But for us, I mean, this is a great asset that we have.
Sure. You know, a hot topic in recent years has been a law school coming to the Valley. Would you support that? And if so, how would you push for it?
There's no support for a law school in the Senate. And I'll tell you why. There is an oversupply of lawyers. We have 20 lawyers right now who are unemployed. As a matter of fact, many of the law schools have been cutting back on their number of seats for incoming classes. Our focus has to be in healthcare and the medical underserved area, the shortage of doctors that we have, not only here in the Rio Grande Valley, but in the state of Texas. We can file the bill and see if the support is there. I'm just telling you what the reality is.
Sure.
I'll be happy to file a bill in the Senate, but you have to have the support and make it a priority. And right now, my read and my conversations with other senators is not focused on a new law school here in the Rio Grande Valley. Our focus has to be on expanding the medical school that at some point will be a great economic generator for us here in the Valley. Keep in mind that the medical school also played a very important part during COVID in terms of testing, in terms of vaccinations, in terms of providing support to healthcare providers.
And I know that the school's gotten pretty specialized. I know it has a school of podiatry, there's a big cancer center coming, Alzheimer's research. Do you think there's other specializations that need funding?
Well, we are creating specializations. A brand new medical school, and it's pretty much a brand new medical school, takes a while to develop its expertise, to develop the courses, to develop reputation. So we're bringing in different type of specialties here to Rio Grande Valley. Working in conjunction with DHR, working in conjunction with McAllen Medical, Edinburgh Medical, and Valley Baptist, we are expanding the specialists medical specialists that we have here in the Valley, so the people do not have to go anymore to Houston or San Antonio or Dallas for the majority special care they need. We now have it here in the Valley. It'll continue to grow and expand.
I want to stay with healthcare. Would you support, and do you think the data is there to suggest we need a veterans hospital in the Rio Grande Valley?
I always supported a veterans hospital. I'm a veteran. I'm a Vietnam Marine Corps veteran. And at some point, we really needed a veterans hospital. But here's what has happened. Because there's been such an increase in the quality, in the upgrade of technology, and the specializations for doctors here in the Rio Grande Valley, that now 90% of the needs of a veteran are met by any hospital. And most of the hospitals are now participating with the VA, where they give you a card and you go get whatever medical service you need at the hospital. It's paid by the VA. The number of procedures that are needed that really have a certain specialty that we don't have here, that's across the board. Even if you're not a veteran, you can't get that type of specialty here. You have to go to Houston or San Antonio or Dallas, Fort Worth. So yes, I would support a VA hospital here. We'll try to address all those issues, taking a different approach by partnering with hospitals that now exist who have specialties to provide the service the veterans need.
All right. At 18.4%, the state of Texas has the highest uninsured rate in the country. Approximately 5 million are uninsured. If you're reelected, what would you do to address the state's high uninsured rate? I've
always pushed to expand the Affordable Care Act. We're leaving on the table over $10 billion a year. Over a 10-year period is $100 billion, not million, billion, because of our failure to extend the Affordable Care Act. I am very supportive of extending the Affordable Care Act. You could call it Obamacare, if you will.
Right.
And the reason is that when we don't take those monies that are our taxpayers' money, that we pay back to the federal government income tax, they're trying to give it back to us, and yet we block it. Or I should say the leadership in Austin blocks it. So I will continue pushing to expand and provide affordable health care to our families, not only here in the Valley, but the whole state of Texas.
I want to talk about economy and money a little bit more. I know in August, inflation reached somewhere around 8% nationally. Affects everything, food, clothing, cost of living. Everyone's wallet is hurting. What can the legislature do to mitigate the impact of inflation? And if you're reelected, what would you do to address it?
What we have done, I'm Vice Chair of Finance, and we have already held hearings trying to identify the increase in cost and what's happening with inflation all across the board, not only in terms of healthcare reimbursements by our healthcare providers, but also what's happening in terms of the supplies and state workers that their salaries are not keeping up with inflation. So it is a big issue. So we are looking at trying to find ways to increase salaries at the state level, trying to increase reimbursements to healthcare providers to at least cover the cost plus, and trying to find ways to push down and make our supply chains a lot more efficient to hold the cost down.
The state doesn't have a minimum wage. Would you support a state minimum wage?
I do. I think that a family and a worker ought to have a living wage, a minimum wage, to be able to feed the family, to be able to put food on the table. It's a quality of life issue. And yet, we continue to increase the number of super wealthy billionaires here in Texas. So we ought to be able to at least pay the workers that have built our infrastructure and work out every day, opening the office door or up in construction or picking up our trash. So yes, I would support a minimum wage.
Do you think it's a realistic possibility?
Well, we can push in. I think you'll see pressure coming up where there is always a push that puts pressure on many employers to increase the wage of the workers.
Sure. I want to switch back to education for a minute. School safety, it's been on everyone's mind since the tragedy in Uvalde. Do you think the legislature has done enough on the school safety front? And if not, what kind of steps would you support?
Well, I don't think we ever will do enough for public school safety. What we have done, we passed Senate Bill 11 in 2019, where we set up a template in a public safety committee for public safety allotment of funding for school security and school safety. In there, initially, we funded $48 million, but it was not enough. We came back and added another $100 million. That was last session. And then we came back this summer and added another $100 million. So it takes coordination between the state and our school districts. What is happening is many of the school districts' buildings are old. So it's kind of tough to try to provide what you call hardening to make them a lot more secure without additional funding. So we as a state are working together with our school systems as to how much money do you need? What can we do to provide the proper guidance? We intend to do audits of public schools. Keep in mind that after we set the template, only about 1/3 of the schools made a real strong effort to provide additional safety measures in the schools. One of the reasons that we always think, well, it can't happen here. It's not going to happen here, but it can happen here. And what happened in Uvalde was really horrible in terms of the failure by the police to follow the training to take out the shooter. It was a failure by part of the administration in terms of being lax about public school security. So there was a multitude of problems that sort of snowballed, and it shouldn't have happened that way, but it did. So we're also trying to provide additional training, uniform training across the state to our law enforcement, so that this doesn't happen again. We will not be able to completely do away with what I call hostile shooters that come in and barge into a school or barge into Walmart or H-E-B. It's a real challenge for us statewide and nationwide. As you well know, even worldwide in Thailand, you had just a shooter go in there and at a daycare center and kill 26 babies. You know, it's just a real challenge for all of us. But we will make that effort. We don't plan to walk away from it. We will continue to push to provide funding, working together with our schools to make our public schools as safe, as secure as humanly possible.
You mentioned audits. How do you hold the districts accountable if they're not doing enough on the safety front?
Well, what we do, we come in and do an audit. It's not a audit to punish. It's an audit to focus on those actions and steps that need to be taken to secure, who we identify their weaknesses and helping them get it right. Not so much to punish them, but to help, and it takes a lot of coordination for us to do that. You know, we'll get parents involved too. I'm sure the parents know that the school district is being lax about it, is not doing a 100% effort to keep our children safe. They'll hear about it from our parents.
You know, I'd like to talk politics for a little while. The Rio Grande Valley is seeing some of probably the strongest Republican campaigns maybe in its history. There's a very real chance there's going to be some elected officials from the Rio Grande Valley who are Republicans. What do you have in common with those people, and would you be able to and willing to cross the aisle to work with them?
You know, I work very well with everyone. My focus is really a common sense approach to solving problems, to identifying the priorities that we have. The vast majority of issues that we take up in the Texas legislature are not partisan issues. They're issues of how do you make government work? How do we fund education? How do we make sure we have the infrastructure funding that we need to keep up with our growth here in our state of Texas? That's 1,200 a day. How do we make sure we have enough water? So that's what the majority of issues we deal with. How do we deal with mental health in our schools? How do we fund that? But the cultural issues get the majority of the headlines.
Sure.
The issues that are very divisive issues get the vast majority of the headlines. But those are very small minority of issues that we take up that are very divisive. I would say 95% of the issues are really issues we're working together to identify what does your district need, what does your district, my Senate district need, what are our priorities, how do we fund college? Well, you have medical school, how can we help you get more money to create and educate more doctors? The nursing shortage, we focus how do we create more nursing schools and have more nurses graduate and provide and fill in the shortage. So those are the issues we really deal with.
Right.
It's only campaigns where things get distorted and exaggerated. But the reality is that we focus on public policy, we focus on issues, and we focus on finding a common sense and a consensus on how to solve very complicated, complex issues.
You know, if you secure the election, what would your top 3 bread and butter issues be in your next term?
Here, when we're talking about, for me, for a family, is that they need affordable health care. They need food on the table. They need a good public schools to educate our children, our grandchildren. They need to make sure that we have the infrastructure set up for broadband and can communicate. We found out how weak our broadband system was here in Texas during COVID. So we invested quite a bit of money into build up the infrastructure so it's affordable broadband and close that digital divide. I would also talk about making sure they provide training. Many of the issues in terms of jobs has changed a lot because of COVID. So we find out that there is a disconnect between a person looking for a job and what business community needs. So we are creating these programs to be able to provide the skills. We have set aside over $100 million to work with the community colleges, work with the universities, with the high schools and the private sector to identify those jobs where they're needed and provide the training so people can have a job and support their family. I mean, those are the issues that we look and see at. And my priorities when I go up to Austin, and I listen. I know my district. I listen to my not only my constituents, my voters, but I also listen to public officials that are very much closer to the people as to what's going on, what do we as a state need to do to make and improve the quality of life for our families.
Sure, you can't get any more bread and butter than doctors, food, and money, I guess.
Well, you can't, because I mean that's the everyday issue that every family has to deal with. You know, sometimes they don't have enough money to go get the prescription drugs. You know, so we try to find ways to keep that down. We deal with a lot of retired teachers, for example, on fixed income. You talk about inflation going up. Sure. We are now trying to deal with a retirement system and pay off the pensions to make them extraordinarily sound. So at some point we can consider a COLA, cost of living increase on a regular basis. We provide a 13 check for retired teachers. We have now a shortage of teachers because of COVID. We try to increase their pay and keep their health insurance costs stable and try to provide them more support and appreciate the jobs they do for us here in Texas. So we deal with a whole range of issues that impact a family on a daily basis.
Sure. Mr. Hinojosa, I could sit here and ask you questions all day long, but I won't subject you to that. Do you have anything else you want to tell people before you go?
Well, I have worked very hard to build the trust of my voters, of the public, but I also work very hard to work well with my colleagues up in Austin. And for me, I look in terms of being a leader, in terms of being effective, and trying to make priority the issues that you all tell me are important to you. But just as important, this has allowed me to be in key leadership positions in Austin, the state capital, where I am one of the most effective legislators constantly over the last 10, 15 years. I co-chair powerful committees. I'm Vice Chair of Finance. I deal with a budget of $250 billion. So I'm pretty experienced. And I would ask you to re-elect me and let me continue doing the job that I've done. And I'll continue responding to the needs that our families have here in Senate District 20.
Wonderful. Again, Mr. Hinojosa is running for State Senate District 20 in November. And this video will be posted on the Monitor and Futuro RGV's social media. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.